Well, hello everybody. It's Friday, it's Venus Day, and Kathy and I are back with more kind of, I don't know whether we call it post-election astrology anymore because it's expanded way beyond that, but it is post-election astrology. And today we've got a lot to look at, but we're going to look at the apparent president's chart again with some insights coming back from history. We're going to look at Romania's chart because Romania is a bit of a hot spot for news at the moment. We're going to look at the newly elected Chancellor of Germany, Merz. He's not actually in power yet, but he won the election. We're going to look at his chart and we're going to look at Bernie Sanders' chart, my favorite Virgo. And so that's where we're going with all of this. But first, I am Louise Edington, Cosmic Owl Astrology, busy as all heck. So, but I do offer one-on-one readings. I'm running my Venus class at the moment, but it's started. So the doors have closed really, although, if anybody does want to join, the first recording is up. But after the first week, I will close the doors because I do see it as a container and it's already magical. And Kathy.
Kathy Biehl. My YouTube channel is Professional Aquarian. My website is empowermentunlimited.net. And I have a Patreon, patreon.com/Kathy Biehl, where I'm now putting really short, like under 60-second daily forecasts for those of you who have great attention deficit. Works out well. I'm also crazy busy myself, so it's a fascinating time.
Oh, it really is maddeningly fascinating. Anyway, I think Kathy, because I've been immersed in literally in my Venus class, I think Kathy's had more time to look at the news. I'm aware of the main things, but Kathy's going to do a roundup for us.
It's just high points because if you've been watching for a while, you may remember that there are two things that from February 12th that I have been emphasizing, and that is the planet Mars sitting at 17 degrees Cancer, which is where it's stationed retrograde on direct on February 23rd, and it's at that number, at that degree until March 9th. And also Uranus on February 12th was at 23 degrees Taurus, and it will not move off until, hold on, March 13th. So we have a period of unrolling going on. And the news since our last video has been filled with court after court after court, stopping firing people, stopping withholding funds. There have been many, many, many injunctions. A couple of religious groups have gotten orders banning ICE from going into Quaker churches and I think Muslim temples. It's the first case has made its way up to the Supreme Court, which is sitting on something at the moment. But the operative language that one federal judge used was excoriating, and look it up, excoriating Trump for overstepping his constitutional powers in what he was doing. And that's happening again and again and again. Add to that marches, people taking to the streets all over the country, whether it's being in the news or not, although it's starting to sneak in. Add to that, because of the wrecking ball, many other countries reconfiguring their alliances and coming up with new ways they can step in and not rely on the now completely erratic former leading power of the globe. And I think we can safely say that the US is not going to be the dominant force on the globe from here on out, even after this situation gets rectified. It's going to be more equals going on. And add to that that there are growing economic boycotts happening. So a lot going on. And increasing information coming out of other, oh yes, two other things. Increasing information coming out of other countries about election interference. There was word from Germany. The far right group doubled its stake in the vote, although it didn't take enough to win dominance. And there's a news report today of, gee, guess what? Vote manipulation there. And add to that, that in Romania, which we will talk about, Romania in the fall, we saw its election immediately being thrown out by the Supreme Court, the highest court in Romania, because a Putin-backed candidate came out of nowhere to the position of tying a couple of weeks after Starlink was in the country. So now that candidate has been arrested on a number of counts. Vance has been arguing for, I don't know, this man's release, leniency, whatever. And Anonymous, whether you want to believe them or not, Anonymous is saying on BlueSky that there is a recording of an ally of this candidate that ties Trump to things there. So stuff's afoot. We've been saying forever and a day that information would circle back from Europe. We're starting to see it. We're seeing Europe reconfigure. We'll see what happens from that. Anything about the news you'd like to add, Louise?
Just that it's becoming more and more evident that, the root of a lot of this is coming from Russia. A lot of these news things are saying that, and the ties to Russia, basically, the US is voting with Russia now in the UN and everywhere, and so that leads into really what we're going to talk about with Donald
Well,
Trump.
but before we get to that, two things. I kind of go through the astrology too. Okay.
Mm,
But feeding out of what Louise just mentioned, since our last conversation, the news has started, the messaging has started spiking again. Interesting timing about Trump's first visit to Russia in 1987 and two former KGB agents. Once again, and this has been off and on for years, but once again saying he was recruited then and he's been an asset ever since. So that
mm,
topic has suddenly come back to, it's floating around again. And in that arena, Kamala Harris made a speech. Kamala Harris showed up. Tim Walz was
oh,
in the Netherlands.
I
Kamala,
missed that she made a speech. Missed
oh,
that
she got
one.
an award from the NAACP and she made a speech. It's
Oh,
maybe minutes long, but she made a speech.
mm,
So we'll see what's happening here, but things are percolating.
mm,
I dive really quickly into what's going on astrologically before we look at Trump.
yeah.
That
Mhm,
okay.
mhm.
So a couple of things about the next couple of weeks. We are moving into a highly confusing month that's going to be a mix of all consuming energies with a preponderance in the sign of Pisces, and at the same time, really fiery, unpremeditated lone wolf actor energies with fighter power.
Yeah.
And that will culminate at the end of the month. But just know, first off, Louise and I have been saying repeatedly, self-care is important. Getting through this with your wits intact does require stepping back, calling a time out to media of any type, getting quiet, dumping your own energy out, and becoming aware of the difference between your inner voice and the panic and the craziness and the lies floating around in the rest of the world. So,
Definitely, definitely. And I've been doing it myself. Because well, we've got the Venus and Mercury retrograde coming up as well, and the eclipses. We'll probably look at all of that. Um, but I've just been, as staying as aware as I need to about what's going on in the world. I'm not immersing myself in it, and please don't. And I'm doing my self-care daily. So we all have to. We really have to. It's like it's a
so
lot.
here's an astrological timetable for you.
Mm.
Venus stations retrograde March 1st, and
Tomorrow.
she's retrograde until um, April 12th. Venus is the planet that rules how we interact with each other, what we value. She's the feminine impulse. She's in warrior goddess mode. So Venus is stationing retrograde as at the Pisces new moon, basically. So we start with a combination of this fieriness and this water, um, uh, And then she's stationing retrograde at the degree where a massive reset is going to happen at the end of the month, and right where Mercury will station retrograde in 2 weeks. So know that there will be a complete Mercury retrograde nested within the Venus retrograde, meaning that March has a huge component of going back over recently traveled territory, figuring out where we need to pick something up, work it back
and
into our
and sometimes old news coming up to light as well, and old stories about people, or people coming back into our, at least our awareness or our lives personally. So we're going to see a lot of that in March as well, and that really kind of takes us back to 1987, where we're going to talk about, right? So.
Right, but oh yeah, in a sec. So other things going on. So Venus stations retrograde, you may feel a weird, I don't want to do anything, that's fine. Or you may get really angry about things you thought you were over. Or like, I got to fight this fight again. Those of us of a certain age have been having that in the back of our mind. On the third,
I've heard people say it actually. I'm like, I've done this so many times. I'm like, well, yep.
on the
Go on.
third, Mercury enters the sign of Aries. So Mercury is our communication mode. There could be a lot of talk about war, anger. Men, you could be very feisty. There could be a very strong unpremeditated. This is blurting. This is just saying stuff, getting into dust-ups with people without thinking it through. Right after that
It can also be clarity though as well. Like,
happens,
you get more clarity out of all this chaos of confusion. So yeah.
and three things that this is leading towards. So I normally only go a week out, but I want to point out that Mercury and Venus will actually be meeting. Mercury in Aries and Venus retrograde will be meeting on March 11th. And then right after that, on the 12th, which is about when, so those two things I told you at the beginning of the video about Mars and Uranus sitting basically on 1 degree and then scooching about the same time, this is when this happens. The sun will meet Saturn. Could be a very sobering moment. You could get really grounded, really clear, could involve a lot about our concepts of authority. And then that leads us into the first eclipse of the month, which is a Virgo full moon lunar eclipse in the sign of Virgo, on top of the U.S. Neptune. What our beliefs are, maybe how we've deluded ourselves about some things, big issues of immigration, racism, separation of church and state, or not. A lunar eclipse closes things down. It brings massive revelations to light. It shuts chapters. It boots people out of your life. And this one is going to have a very strong impact of parting the fog, redrawing boundaries. Some of the border issues or the alliance issues could get really pronounced. And we're feeling this already. So the thing to focus on now is Venus stationing retrograde and meeting up with Mercury, and the two of them kind of moving into a collaboration that will give us the opportunity to revisit a lot of things that will get our juices going and maybe send more people to the streets. I don't know, could be.
And I do want to mention that it's actually a blood red moon. It's a total lunar eclipse, which are always even more powerful. And I'm just looking at the path of it, actually. I hadn't actually looked at it. Oh, and of course, it's total over the whole of North America. Oh,
Canada, the US, and
yes. Yeah. And quite a lot of South America too, but the only bit that is not total is just part of Alaska. So pretty much all of North America. Wow. Okay.
So
It's gonna be wild, guys. And there's so much going on astrologically, it's almost impossible to separate out some of these aspects. So, to be quite honest, because it's all like this big melting pot. But anyway, so that's the transits. We are going to look at Donald's chart first. Oh, that's the Russian Federation with July the 4th, 1987. That was the day he first went to
Moscow.
Moscow. Yeah,
Mhm.
that year. And so Kathy kind of asked that we look at this one. And so I'll let her talk first, but I have some stuff to add about the Venus star point as well as all the other things that we see happening here. But yeah, dive in.
There are two big things I want to point out. The first one is look at Jupiter in Aries in the ninth house of foreign dealings. Jupiter in Aries is incredibly lucky. It's very daring, and it's in an exact trine, unbroken flow, to his Mars in Leo. So that fits completely with, you will get good fortune from us if you act behind the scenes for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's thing one. Thing two is Chiron aspects in both directions. Chiron in the sky was on his Sun North Node, Moon South Node opposition. And the Moon in the sky at 10 degrees, which I do believe has something to do with Putin's chart, is on his Chiron.
Yeah.
So, a big thing about that was apparent in the New York area was
Mm.
that Trump was from Queens, not from Manhattan, and nothing that he could do could get the respect of old money Manhattan. His accent doesn't even fit. That's part of it. So there's something here about no matter what I do, I'm still the guy from Queens. So there would
Mm.
be an abiding wound that this would have fed into and played to, like, well, we'll do this for you. And now you'll
To
get to
go
be,
along with all his other wounds.
yeah, and now you get to be a big guy. Those
And
are two
yeah,
big things I
I
see. Oh,
I
the nodes
also
are also on his Neptune. Sorry. The nodes are also
yeah,
on his Neptune. So,
and they're at 6 degrees, which means that the North Node forms a fire trine to the North Node of the USA, which is 6 Leo, and also that we were having a Kazemi, like on July the 4th. And July the 4th, well, most Americans know what that day that is. And so this Kazemi was very close to the sun of the USA. So this tied in a lot to do with his journey with this USA as a country. And the reason why we're looking at this is because there's reports that he was recruited as an asset called Krasnov. Was it Krasnov or Krasov? Krasnov.
that's enough.
Yeah, Krasnov.
Name of my
Yeah,
first Russian professor.
yeah. And it's now two former KGB agents are
Mm.
saying that. So shortly after this visit, because I work with the Venus star point, and so I study that cycle over history. And as a reminder, the Venus star point, which is when the Sun and Venus meet every 9.5 months, is like an invisible heartbeat moving in the background collectively and individually. Well, we had the first Leo star point after over 100 years of having no Leo star points in 1987, and it was called the Harmonic Convergence. The 1987, they had kind of a big get together in kind of the woo world. A lot of astrologers feel like the age of Aquarius began then, but I think we can see this. Look at this, the first Leo star point right after he'd gone to Russia, and and things would have started emerging then if the stories are that are alleged are true. That his star would rise, Leo, as taking the stage and kind of building wealth. And it was at 29 Leo in an exact trine with Jupiter by that point in Aries, which Kathy already mentioned, kind of foreign connections and things. And so this would have started this huge cycle. And we had the last Leo star point. So we're still under the Leo star point every 4 years, one retrograde, one direct. So we're still under that. So every time we have a Leo star point, this has kind of been impacting his chart. And so the last one was, sorry, I'm just my, 2023. Yeah, August 13th, 2023, as he was running for election again, was at 20 Leo. So, this would have, then that one would have aspected his nodes, and he came into preeminence again. So, it's like the seeds were set for him to think he was king of the world, basically. If you think of Leo as the sun sign and Leo as royalty, we can even add in Regulus, fixed star there, which is the royal star.
It was
The
still there
king.
then. It hadn't moved into
It
Virgo.
was, that's right. Yes, because it didn't move into Virgo until the end of 2011. So I'll add that in real quick so people can see it. So it was conjunct the royal star right on his ascendant that year that he was allegedly recruited by Putin. So
Did
just
get a big influx of money. Okay, he did get a
he
big
did.
influx of money that I think is verifiable. And then the whole thing with the beauty pageant. And if you'll
Yeah.
notice, one other thing I want to mention is his Neptune in the second house is in at 5 degrees Libra. So, creating an illusion through a deal or grifting or whatever was square Neptune in the sky at the time. So that kind of defines this whole relationship of illusion,
Yeah.
fraud.
Yeah. Yeah. And look at this as well on this. And of course this was building as he went to Moscow. And Uranus was on his moon, the people, if you like, as well. That wrecking ball. It's almost like something was seeded right back then, I think, to bring out where we're at now in many ways. So many ways. Oh, so yeah, interesting. Love how astrology works. And I'm just trying to get my cursor back so I can change charts. If we're done, are we done?
Oh, we're done. Let's go on. Let's go to
Yeah.
Romania.
I kind of feel that that shows that those reports are true, but it's not been proven in a court, so I'm going to say allegedly. So here's the Romania chart where, the election was overturned by their Supreme Court. Also, in Romania in the news was the Tate brothers, Andrew Tate and whatever his brother's called, the horrible alleged rapists and child traffic or human traffickers, were basically given a private flight to Florida because Trump stepped in and got them out of Romania. So, wow. I guess alleged rapists stick together, right? So anyway, so Romania. Well, as soon as I saw the chart, instantly I noticed the ascendant. So I had to send it to Cassie, and I was like, oh, well, that's 17 Cancer. That's where Mars has just stationed direct and where Mars is sitting for a while, as Cassie has told us. Also on the Saturn in Leo, that's 8 degrees Leo. Mars went retrograde at 6 degrees Leo, and this is the first house. So that's bringing us. We're seeing Romania more coming up more. There's lots. Oh, it was square Pluto as well. Mars retrograde. Oh, anyway, yes, go on.
Oh, no. And Jupiter stationed direct on its Jupiter and 11 degrees Gemini. So there's information again. And notice that the moon and Neptune are in Pisces and the sun's been on that moon. And there's this conglomerate, this huge convention, the Pisces pool party right across Romania's midheaven, dissolving what's been going on there. Look at that. Look at that. So March is going to be a really prominent, important month. court stuff, things having to do with illusion, things having to do with foreign countries doing things causing smoke screens. This is a real Wizard of Oz, Toto pulling the screen back and seeing who's behind the curtain moment.
Mm,
And it's going to have its Uranus return in June,
yeah.
June. So, because it's moving up on it. And as Uranus moves up on it, it's squaring its south node, north nodes. It's making a T square. So its role in the collective, it might be a much bigger force in NATO as a consequence of this, because the 11th house is group associations and
Mhm.
organizational memberships. Who knows what more will happen?
And I just have to mention that that Venus star point in 1987 was on the south node of Romania in their second house. And, I think a lot of these stories were probably seeded around that time. Because what year did Putin come in to power?
It was in the 90s, wasn't it? Maybe
I think
later.
so.
Maybe later.
Um, Putin elected first time. I'm going to have to look.
The Russian Federation started in the 90s.
Yeah. So yeah, that was March 2000. But I really think that a lot of these, stories were seeded, before he actually kind of came into power, because he was obviously, KGB agent. I think I'd looked into it a little bit before,
Yeah, he
and
was.
you know, but also where he got involved in the government before he was elected. I think that was the late 80s too. So he could have been the one that even recruited them. And if anybody knows about, the kind of Eastern Bloc, as they call them, all these kind of Eastern Bloc countries, Romania, have kind of been in this entanglement with, East, West, Russia, West for a long time, history wise. So Romania, well, I'm not surprised that that was kind of seeded then, and that they have had election interference allegedly as well, and it was overturned, and so on and so forth. So, wow,
The
yeah.
final thing I'd like to point out before we leave this is Pluto at 2 degrees Aquarius transiting in the seventh house of open enemies, but also allies. And it's in a sextile, which is an opportunity aspect to Mars and Aries in the 10th house. So there is something here about openings to tackle attacks and to take action that involves, this could be its role in NATO, this could be taking action against some rogue element that has come at it.
Mm-hmm.
Romania will continue to be a factor in the unfolding story.
And the next Venus star point is coming March the 22nd, when Venus is retrograde on their Mars square their Venus, pretty much as well. And this is just astounding as well. So they are very much involved in, this whole relationships with it, with different countries and things, story that's unfolding as well, but also about taking action. And Venus in Capricorn, kind of likes the order, um, and so, wow, this is just an amazing time for Romania. So watch the news coming out
And no
on.
surprise that there's a connection to Trump and news about Romania, because its South Node at 29 degrees Leo is on his ascendant, and it's
Exactly.
also activated by the 1987 connections
Yeah,
that Louise was talking about.
yeah, it's just amazing stuff. This is quite honestly. Anyway, that's all we're going to say about that. We're quickly going to look at Merz now from Germany. So we'll look at his chart on its own first. We do not have a time for him, so I put the sun on the first house cusp. But look where his Jupiter is, Kathy.
Yep, yep. Jupiter conjunct
And
Pluto.
yeah, but seeded in that first Venus star point, I think, back in 1987. I'd love to look back and see what he was doing then, but I haven't had time to do that yet. But either way, the story is coming back now from that time that people called the harmonic convergence, that things are coming back to light, shall we say. So, and he has come to prominence in the 10th solar sign house, but his career and the leader. I think he's going to be quite a big force for NATO and for, and he's like Rutte, the head of NATO. He's centre right. He's not. He's a conservative, but he's a conservative in the old school kind of. I want to keep the this order in power kind of thing. So,
His
yeah,
south node is on Trump's Uranus, so he's been watching him for a while, I would guess. His moon is on Trump's Chiron. It's somewhere in there. We know it's not exactly 13.
yeah.
Transiting Mars, Mars stationed direct in a square to his Mars, and it's in the solar house of eighth. That's crimes, what you're invested in, whatever. So he's been speaking out, and he will continue to speak out. And he has said, he's yeah. He said, well, I think he did say he was going to go after Musk for election interference if he were elected. He was elected, so I would expect that to be coming out, and that Mars at 17 Cancer is sitting on Musk's ascendant, so he's a factor in all of this as well. Mars's North Node is on the U.S. ascendant, so he has fundamentally and for a long time been allied with this country and the future of our country. His moon is on our Saturn. He plays a big role. He plays a very, very big role.
And just collectively, his Chiron is in Aquarius, and that degree 0 Aquarius has been aspected over and over, and is Pluto has just gone over it again for the last time fully. But he's stepping into his power, having kind of it's both opened up his wound of kind of alienation and things, but also Aquarius is for the people, the collective, in many ways, and Pluto is going back and forth over his Chiron still. It's not done, even though it won't go back to 0 degrees. That's a big transit. That's by transit, Pluto takes away what you thought was your power and leaves you with what is truly your power. So it's a real time to step into empowerment as a leader for the future, Aquarius, if you want to put it that way as well. There's so much going on. It's
that Pluto is opposite Uranus, and Mars, as Mars moves forward. So notice that this chart's for March 22nd. So as we're talking, Mars is still at 17 Capricorn. So Mars is moving into a trine to his sun. That's okay. Mars is moving into a trine to his sun, and then a trine to his Jupiter, only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then Mars will eventually hit his Uranus opposite Pluto. And that's the time to watch for when something really big is going to happen. And that's April 22nd. End of April.
Pluto, I would say Pluto is in orb already of a square to his natal Mercury in Scorpio. He's probably going to reveal some secrets, hidden things that are emerging. He's going to be a part of that, I think.
And that's speaking out for your own survival.
Oh, yeah. That too. Yeah. So watch him too. So any more on him? Do you want to?
The other thing I pointed out that transiting Uranus at 23, Taurus in his 7th house of allies, partners, open enemies, and it is very slowly moving into a square to his Pluto. Well, it's currently sitting opposite his Saturn, and he's breaking from what the established order has been with what he's been saying about the United States in the weeks since Trump has been in office. And he's been a staunch supporter of the U.S. always.
Yep.
And anyway, as Uranus moves forward, it's going to move into a square to Pluto and then Jupiter in the 10th. So and Uranus doesn't move into Gemini until July. So I'm going to say June will be a very, very hot month for
Mm.
something that he's involved in that really changes his role in the greater scheme of things.
And you know, if you want to hark back to things we've said before about other people's charts, he's a Scorpio with Sun Saturn conjunct in Scorpio. He is a determined, strong person, and Germany just collectively is shocked by what's happening, by Musk going and saying it's time to forget about the Holocaust. You know, I'm from UK, and you know, I've been to Germany many times. They do not want to be told to forget about the Holocaust, and to have Musk coming in and trying to interfere in their elections allegedly as well. They are not going to be happy about that. The Germans, you know, are kind of a very strong people in many ways as well, just collectively. So he's kind of the right person at the right time to stand up for Germany, I think, for sure. Yeah. Again, nothing about him personally. I don't actually know him that well, just from what the astrology says. So we'll come back to the US because I know, you know, and my favorite man, Bernie. Bernie has been doing an anti-oligarchy floor. He's been standing on the floor doing speeches, even if nobody's in the Senate, he carries on doing it. But he's been doing this anti-oligarchy tour, he calls it, going out and spreading the bread and butter message about how these policies and actions, rather, not just the policies, are going to affect people. And the rooms have been packed. They've been turning away people at one. They had to turn away 800 people. They're live streaming them too. It's like Bernie's campaign in 2016, which I was a national delegate for. His message just resonates. And I can tell you that Bernie's message, whatever you think of him personally, don't come in the comments bringing me that crap, because I will just delete them, to be quite honest. I'm talking about his message. I campaigned in 3 states, knocking on doors, 3 red states for Bernie Sanders. And his message resonates with both Democrats and Republicans. I would get Republicans going, oh, yeah, I like Bernie, because he would talk to what's going on with your roads, what's going on with your money, what's going on in your pocket. And so he is, again, the right person at the right time. So there's my, like, you know, I'm not saying he should have been president or anything like that. I'm just saying that, you know, he's such a Virgo. He is like, keep going, keep chopping wood, carrying water, keep telling the same message about bread and butter issues, which I think is very Virgoan, in my opinion. Would you agree?
Oh yeah.
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 So all of this Pisces stuff is piled up on his south node, and the eclipse coming up is just sorry, I'm a Bernie girl, so I will kind of go on and on about him if you let me. Clearly, I was a national delegate for him in my first federal election, right? So the moon, the people in this eclipse, is on his north node, and the south node is on his Pisces. He will lay down his soul to get us out of this if necessary, I think this is saying. And he is going to work himself maybe to the grave for this. He is going to do these tours. He's going to speak out. He's going to listen. He's going to talk to the people. Cassie, keep going.
Bunch of things. Okay, so we've talked a lot about Mars having station direct. Currently, it's still at 17 Cancer. It's in his 8th house of what you invest in, what you get out of things, other people's money, the whole concept of money, retirement, investments. So he's very practical, and he's very homeland, actually, home and family oriented. That Mars is forming a T-square, so it's the pressure point of the opposition between his Venus in Libra in the 11th house of Congress groups, long-term wishes, and his Moon Mars conjunction in the 5th house. So this is activated him more and more and more as the fighter, the fighter, the fighter. He's fighting for people, he's fighting for families. And as Mars continues moving forward in Cancer, it's going to be in a sextile, an opportunity aspect to his North Node, and then to Neptune, which is where the big reset of the lunar eclipse is coming. But two more things. Notice that he has Uranus currently in his sixth house of daily routine. It's going to be crossing over into his seventh house, crossing his Saturn, and then he has his Uranus return and before that, he's having his Jupiter return. So this is cycle upon cycle upon cycle. His role will be different. I'm not going to venture to guess how or what will be happening from this, but notice also that his Pluto is at 5 Leo. Mars retrograde started at 6 Leo. So in April, when Mars is plowing back through Leo again, there it'll be. Actually, let's see what day it'll be. So he's going to be very prominent in the close-up time frame
Oh,
in a
he
way
is.
that he hasn't been.
And
It crosses.
it could just be in terms of him going out and constantly speaking and giving his message, you know.
Right,
Yeah, yeah,
right.
yeah. Sorry,
It's going to
Carol.
be late April, early May that it crosses his Pluto, that Mars
Yeah,
does that. So,
yeah.
um,
And Pluto by transit as well, you know, is making a trine to his Mercury. So to talk about speaking to the people,
mhm.
Chiron, we know it's on the USA's Chiron. It's crossing his moon, or it's sat on his moon mostly for the most of the last couple of years, pretty much on and off, and is going up to his Mars, bringing out that warrior kind of energy. And I'm hearing more and more people go, Bernie was right, you know, about what was coming, because he predicted the oligarchy like way back, you know, before anybody else was acknowledging it. He has sat there on his own, speaking to empty rooms, talking about the oligarchy. It makes me laugh. Go on.
Once again, I am.
Yes, once again. Yes. And this is unprecedented. So, yeah. And sorry, everybody will go, why are you laughing again? But you know, his nodes are in that Virgo Pisces axis too. So after these eclipses, he's also going to have a reverse nodal return. He is kind of reaching all these cycles, and he is just going to keep going and keep talking and keep doing whatever he can to stop what's happening and to tell people what's happening. So I think, yeah.
Right.
So listen to him. Bernie's usually right, to be honest. Anything else you want to say? I
No,
just want
I
to.
think
I just want to actually look when Uranus hits his Saturn. So I've just got to have a quick look. So because it's
it'll be in
this
May, won't it? Let's see, what day?
June
Oh,
the
June.
8th,
Okay.
exactly, because he's felt it coming, because Uranus nearly got to his Saturn and went retrograde, and now it's going back over this path again, and leading to this, you know, he's our revolution. He is his one of his slogans. You know, he is a revolutionary voice for the people to stand up to this. So yeah.
There we have it.
Yeah, we have it. So don't come on going, why was there so much misogyny in Bernie's campaign? I'm like, oh, please come on. Look at the bigger picture here. Just listen to, you know, what he's saying. There's misogyny everywhere for a start. All right, everybody. So do your self-care. Please, please, please do your self-care. Make sure you are not just sitting there going immersed in all the chaos that's happening, because half of it is being blocked, as I said before. And, it's so much right now that we're not sure where this is going to end up. Nobody is sure exactly where this is going to end up. But both Kathy and I and others agree that after this major period of rebirth, if you like, the future looks pretty bright. So would you agree?
I'd say very, very bright, but I can't stress enough, we have not lived through what March is going to be like. And I have two metaphors for it. They're kind of similar. One of them is we're riding rapids. There's no guide at the front of the raft. We don't have a map. We don't even know what the river is. We don't know where we're going, and we're navigating on instinct and
Mhm.
intuition. And also there's fire coming up from the water. The other one is that we're on some kind of crazy adventure ride at an amusement park that's just rocking us through water. And again, there's fire coming up, and we'll finally hit this lagoon and we'll think, all right, here we go. But then the raft turns into a rocket ship and we blast off. So really
Yeah.
weird month, and we don't know where we're going, except I will tell you, and I've said this consistently, it's very empowering, and people
Mhm.
have the latitude to do what is really best for them. I've had more readings than I can even imagine since December, and nobody has horrible things. No one has heavy,
No.
horrible things this year. It's all very, very empowering, very just, I'm just going to do X, whatever it is.
Mhm.
So know that there is a huge air of fog, of mist, of steam, of unreality. If things feel surreal and you think this can't really be happening, consider the possibility that maybe it isn't real, and
Yes, yes.
listen to your own voice. And your what you do on it from may vary from day to day. Some days you may be in the street, some days you may be calling every representative you can think of, some days you may be sitting quietly on the couch and regrouping. And you don't
Well,
have
it's
to,
all good.
yeah, it's going to vary every
Yeah.
single day. It's just different.
Yeah. And just know though, but as we do have to interact with the outer world sometimes, I do it as little as possible, but because Mercury is right there right now as we record this on the last day of February, people are not thinking straight. That kind of shows up the conspiracy theories as well, but oh, driving. Oh, if you're driving, be mindful. There's gonna, but there is, I think I do have to acknowledge that there is some suffering. Some people are suffering, people are losing their jobs, their livelihood, people are losing their test. Faith is being tested. We're having a big test of faith, and that's where you have to come within and support each other and look after each other and come from a place of love. Yeah. All right. Much love, everybody. See you next time.